moving into our main topic for episode 110 of the Security Token Show, we're talking about the SEC issuing the very first sanctions on a regulation CF campaign. Now, Herwig, this article came across your desk. Can you break down exactly what happened?
Absolutely. I'm always looking at what's the latest activity going on with the SEC, of course. And this one stood out to me, actually, because this one was, as you said, the first time regarding regulation crowdfunding fraud. That's a big deal. This was an industry, specifically I'm talking about the regulation crowdfunding and actually the Reg A plus industry as well. Like we talked about earlier on the show, like a company like Exodus using those. Those have been fraud-free to date, up until now, unfortunately. So that's a big deal, of course. One of the promises of crowdfunding is that there is a intermediary, there is a crowdfunding portal similar to a broker-dealer that is taking the steps to make sure that whoever is raising money on those portals follow the rules and are legit people. And in this case, it looks like two bad actors managed to slip by. In fact, what they did was they set up two different companies on the same portal focused around real estate. One was called Transatlantic Real Estate LLC, and the other one was called 420 Real Estate LLC. And they managed to raise quite a bit of money, $1.8 million collectively. And actually, the SEC said that most of those funds were diverted towards the bad actors' lifestyle and financial personal expenses. So that's a big deal, of course, because that was meant to go into the company and potentially do some kind of a real estate activity. So that means this is full-on fraud. This is exactly what the SEC is here to do and prevent. And unfortunately, this one managed to slip through in the regulation crowdfunding industry, on this case on the portal called TrueCrowd. So they, of course, are also now going to be subject to fines. This is sort of a precedent because this is the first time that this is happening. So who knows what is going to kind of have some effects on this portal, if there's anything else beyond it, if there's there was an investor bulletin that was also posted by the SEC. And of course, hopefully other crowdfunding portals are now going to look at this and say, you know, we got to make sure that we're really doing our due diligence, because the worst part is actually that one of the bad actors even had a criminal record, which I'm pretty sure is a big no-no in the first place for being able to list and raise funds on a portal in the first place. So Kyle, that's 4,000, almost 4,000 regulation crowdfunding offerings. One, arguably two of them were bad.
Yeah, so this is really, as you said, a kind of a two-part story. You know, when you're looking at an issuer that raises capital and then misappropriates those funds, that's unfortunately just a risk factor of investing in early stage companies. The reality is that a lot of times companies misuse funds, whether it's intentional or unintentional. And that's one of those risk factors that as an investor, it's very important to consider. The team and the objective, the timeline, the use of funds, all those things to make sure that the investments that you're making are ones that you're going to be confident in long term. Don't forget that investing in early stage companies, the average lifetime of that investment to actually see a return on it is 5 to 7 to up to even maybe 10 years. Yeah. So you better make sure the companies you're buying into are ones you're holding for the long term. So that's just kind of one of those risk factors that you can try to mitigate based off of research. The other piece of it here that I definitely think is more of the news story is this idea of having the criminal record. This is where you would expect a crowdfunding portal that is licensed as a specific broker license to allow for crowdfunding events to occur on their platform. You'd expect that they would be able to do this level of diligence on the executive team. This is something that they definitely will see some sort of penalty for their negligence on this front. It's going to be very interesting to see how that develops over time.
Well, of course, this is, like you said, investing. Fraud is, of course, happening in private capital markets. It, of course, happens in public capital markets. I think it would be silly to think that the regulation crowdfunding industry would have been immune to it as well. So this is indeed going to happen here every now and then. And that's why it's so important to do your own research and make sure that you always check on the actual background of the individuals. The team is so important no matter what your investment is. And of course, there's many other factors and tools out there like CrowdCheck and other Invenium and other tools that you can go ahead and use to verify a lot of information about underlying investments. That's something that you might look for in deal rooms on these various portals. But of course, Kyle, I think I can speak for you that we are the biggest fans of crowdfunding. It is the biggest democratization of private capital markets, the opportunity for any average individual to invest and participate in the early stages of something big or a new business that's being built off the ground. So hopefully this doesn't put too big of a stain on the industry, and I hope we're going to see many more than just 4,000 offerings to date that will hopefully all be, of course, fraud-free.
Especially when we leverage on tokenization, create secondary markets, all this amazing opportunity that we cover here every week on the show. And with that, I think it's time to wrap up episode 110. Thank you to everyone who's made it this far. We appreciate it. If you want to learn more, follow us on social media, LinkedIn, Twitter, anywhere that you get your information. Subscribe on YouTube, leave us some feedback, subscribe to the What's Drippin' newsletter that we post every week covering all of the latest headlines, and we cannot wait to share with you more next week.
If you had questions, or if you have feedback, or if you have thoughts for the show, you can always reach out to us. We're available on Twitter or LinkedIn. And by the way, we did just this week launch a Discord channel, so come and talk to a really awesome community that is chittering and chattering a lot about security tokens now 24/7, so that's a lot of fun too.
Thank you so much for checking it out. We'll talk to you next week.
Happy tokenizing.